All right, daily ticker time. Tiger just hit a bad tee shot on 4. We're glued to it. Day 2 at Augusta. He's back to even par. There has been a lot of negativity around your university, Brandon Sprague.
Yeah, there has been, man.
Things are not going great. A lot of players are transferring. The women's basketball team was a positive. Now it's turned into a negative. But you got one beacon of hope left. And that beacon of hope is the baseball team.
It's Joe Freeman.
It's Joe Freeman, and it's the men's baseball team. And joining us now is a good friend of the program, first time in a long time, our good buddy, Joe Freeman, at Blazer Freeman on Twitter. When do we change the Twitter handle? Can we be Beaver Freeman? How does that work?
Let's just change it to Beacon of Hope, Freeman. How about that?
I like that.
There's the positive. I like that, man. Look, Oregon State fan, they have been beaten over the head a lot here in the last couple of months, and we don't need to rehash all of that. But we thought, let's get you on because this is a really positive story. The team is picking up right where they left off last year. What's the change in coverage been like for you, going from so many years of NBA's hoops to covering college baseball? And what are some of the stories that you've loved kind of talking about so far early in this baseball season?
The Oregon State baseball team is a lot of fun to cover. It's a well-run program with a lot of good people involved in it, and it's a very talented program. And this season, this team is probably the best team that I've covered in, I don't know, I've been doing this 4 or 5 years now. They had a really good run a couple of years ago, got within one run and one out of making, the College World Series, and I think this team is well positioned to go to Omaha this year. I don't know where you want to start, but I guess when you're talking about this team, you have to look at their lineup. It's one of the best lineups in college baseball, up and down with talent. They're on pace to shatter the program home run record they set last year. I think they have 62 home runs through how many games are we at? I don't know. Well, I don't know where we're
31,
at.
31, yeah.
31, there you go. So last year they said it was 89, and they're going to obliterate that, obviously. And then, of course, for the casual fan, I feel like even the casual fan has heard about Travis Bazzana, who's arguably the best college baseball player in the country and, positioned to be a top 5 pick in the MLB draft.
Joe, I want to get to the team. I do, but I am curious, and one of the reasons I wanted to get you on, you've been covering this, as you mentioned, now for a few years. I think people understand, but don't quite understand what it's like to do the grind of an NBA beat as long as you did it and how tiring that is on your life, your personal life. What was it about Oregon State baseball that you gravitated towards, whether that was the assignment and then you kind of fell in love with it, or just an instant, this is kind of generally a pretty special situation, some years better than others. What was it about that beat that kind of drew you to it?
Well, it was asked of me to do, so that initially drew me to it. If we're going to keep things above the board here,
yeah.
But once you get into it, anything you cover, if you're around good, honest people who treat you well, you tend to, find your footing and such. But I mean, personally, I played baseball my whole life growing up, from age 2 or 3 through high school. So. I played virtually every sport growing up, but that was the one that I played my whole life. And so, I have a pretty intimate knowledge of the sport and whatnot, and was a very passionate baseball fan until the Red Sox hired Bobby Valentine, and then I just hit the eject button. So, but yeah, I mean, look, it is a perennial power and college baseball is a niche sport. I grew up partially in Tallahassee, Florida. And we had season tickets to Florida State baseball games most years that I lived there. And I mean, I remember as a kid running on the field after the game and being around that atmosphere all the time. It's for someone who's a baseball fan, it's a very special sort of a thing. I mean, it's a drastic step down from the majors, obviously, but for Oregon State fans and for baseball fans, it doesn't get much better, than Oregon State baseball for sure.
Well, how surprised are you? You have a really good update on some of the injuries they've been dealing with. How surprised are you of the offense and how they're probably going to break these records despite losing some pretty key figures?
Well, I don't know if I'm surprised, but it definitely speaks to the just ludicrous depth they have. Talking to people around the program in the fall and then sort of writing about it ahead of the season, Ryan Gibson, who's their hitting coach and a former player, and someone who's very tight with Coach Mitch Canham and Coach Mitch Canham, they both said, look, this is probably the best offense and the best lineup this school has ever had. And that's really saying something. I mean, with how many major league players this program has produced through the years. But, to be able to withstand, they have 3 starters out and 3 starters who have missed significant time. 2 outfielders, Brady Casper's missed almost the whole season with a sprained knee. Micah McDowell, I think, has played in only 21 games because of a couple minor injuries. And then, a freshman All-American candidate, Trick Caraway's a third baseman. He's only got 2 years of college baseball before he goes to the majors, and he'll be a first-round pick. I mean, he's sort of Gavin Turley light for them with the impact he make. And he shattered his finger on a bunt attempt and I think he's only played in like 11 or 12 games or so. And so those are 3 huge middle of the order pieces that they missed. And so to be able to, produce at the level they are, I mean, they're hitting 325 as a team. Uh-huh. They lead the Pac-12 in nearly every offensive category, you name it, and they do. And so, I guess I'm a little surprised because of all those absences, but it just speaks to the depth and talent. They also missed their Friday night ace for about 2 or 3 starts there early in the year too, so they were able to overcome that as well.
Yeah, it's really impressive. Joe Freeman is our guest, at Blazer Freeman on Twitter. He's senior writer at The Oregonian, covering now Oregon State baseball, has been for the last couple of years. One of the best teams in the country, starting a big series here tonight down in Corvallis. A listener is asking us, a Beaver fan, and it sucks that they have to go have this mindset and this thought process, but I figured I'll ask you, because I thought the women's basketball team was safe from it. They went to the Elite Eight. I know the downgrade in conference isn't great, but felt like that was a group that maybe would stick it together and see, hey, how far can we go next year? Let's prove everybody wrong. When you talk to people, when you're having conversations down there, is there a fear that the mass exodus will hit the baseball team? Is that not even a topic of conversation? Like, how's that going internally?
It's not really a topic of a conversation right now, just because of where we're at in the season. It's a very difficult thing to go around and ask guys, hey, are you thinking about transferring after this, And, first of all, you're a jerk if you do that. I mean, for obvious, just they look you in the face like, are you kidding me? And then also, they're really living in the moment, as big as the sports cliche goes. They're just grinding out day to day. And so I personally would be surprised if there was a mass exodus in college with the baseball program. I have heard that, and I know that there's a fear, and I would say it's a legitimate fear based on what we're seeing across all sports at the university, but in particular football, and then just a massacre in women's basketball. But the one thing that I will say is different about baseball is first of all, it's the crown jewel of the athletic program with its 3 national championships and continued longevity of success. But they have chosen a different path than pretty much every other sport at the school. They're going into an independent schedule next year. And between the development that this staff for years has shown, I mean, they've got guys like Wade Meckler and Jacob Melton and Cooper Jerpy and Justin Boyd, stars of the program a couple of years ago who are either have made major league appearances already in the case of Wade Meckler, or on the verge like Jacob Melton of cracking the bigs. They have a track record of grooming guys. They sent a program record guys to the draft a couple of years ago. So they've shown a proven ability to develop guys and get them to the next level. Between that and their ability to play an independent schedule and still play high-level competition, I don't know that it's going to affect them as much. Beyond, I think they're going to have to travel more. I think they're going to go visit a lot more teams. But it kind of opens the door to play more high-profile teams. And I know in talking with people behind the scenes, they've mapped out the majority of their schedule for the next year or more, and it will include teams from the future Big Ten, the ACC. It'll have a lot of opponents that were a part of what will be the old Pac-12. And they played in a very premier tournament earlier in the year with Arkansas and Michigan and Texas Tech and someone else I'm forgetting. And so they're going to play in that thing again next year. And so baseball is a little different from that standpoint. And also, over the years, historically, baseball teams, can get to Omaha that are like, what? Who's that team? So it's a little bit different. But all that said, I will be holding my breath after the season, and as well as making a lot of phone calls just to make sure that everything is as it should be. Because at this point, man, I don't believe anything anybody tells me, or it's hard to trust anything. I mean, I have talked and texted and looked Damian Martinez in the eyes and spoken to him countless times and listened to him talk about loyalty and never wanting to leave and believing in Trent Bray and wanting to help him keep it going and blah, 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 blah. And yet here we are. So, 15 years of covering the NBA combined with stuff like that leads one to be a bit skeptical of things that people tell them.
I know you've been covering it a few seasons now. Expectations sometimes are not fair that we put on people. Players have to grow. We should be allowing coaches to grow and learn as well. Mitch Canham gets to Corvallis and becomes the head coach and overtakes it from Pat Casey, and they don't win a World Series right away, so it's instant panic. Oh, is our program doomed? They're rolling right now. They're 27-4, massive series against Stanford this weekend. What have you seen just in Canham's growth as kind of the leader of this team, an alum, a guy who had success with this program, understands what it's about? How has he grown in your eyes just covering the program at this point the last couple of years?
Well, he pretty much stays true to himself. I mean, he was a natural-born leader on those those back-to-back World Series teams, and back when he played, two-time All-American, it went up through the minors. And then he was a manager in the minors for many years. And quite frankly, he was on a path to be a major league manager. And I think the one and only job that led him to leave that path was this job. It's sort of his dream job. He's kind of preaches about being a Beaver through and through, even through everything that's gone on over the last, year or so. But I've just seen him grow, I guess, in comfortability. He was always pretty comfortable in his own skin and spoke to be comfortable taking over for a legend. I guess it's a little easier in his position since he was such a star for that legend and learned so much from that legend. But it really has, over the last 4 or 5 years, kind of become his program. He's kind of put his stamp on things, and he's got a very different temperament than Pat Casey, who was very fiery, seemingly always running around with his hair on fire.
Red ass.
Total red ass. Yeah. Total red ass. And I think Mitch has some of those traits. He just masks them a lot better. He's very stoic. He's always very calm. I'll see a guy just make a horrendous play or just a ridiculous base running decision, and I always look at the dugout at some point to see Mitch, and he's just got the same exact stoic look on his face. It's remarkable, because I would probably be somewhere in between, maybe at times leaning more towards Pat. I would like to think that I would be more Mitch, but when you see people just do dumb things, it just drives me nuts. And so, yeah, I mean, he's at this point almost everybody, but I want to say one guy, Joey Munt, who is like in his 12th year because of injuries in the bullpen, is a guy that at some level Mitch has recruited or been, intimately involved with in the recruiting process. And so, I mean, this is his team, this is his program, it's his entire staff. He's overhauled a lot of things from, a nutrition standpoint and a weightlifting standpoint and all the stuff that, modern sports has done. And so, at this point, I guess the only thing eluding him is that first trip to Omaha, and of course that first championship. But I mean, let's not forget, Pat Casey was an incredible coach. He won 800 games. He's in the College Baseball Hall of Fame. He coached, I don't know, however many years it is, 40 years, an insane number of years. He won 3 times, and that's a ridiculous accomplishment. My childhood hero, Mike Martin, who coached Florida State, I think he won 40 games, like 40 years in a row, and he never won a World Series.
Yeah.
So, that's the way baseball is insane. You could have the best. Tennessee a couple of years ago didn't even make the World Series, and they were by far the best team in college baseball. So it doesn't always happen, but I would just be absolutely stunned if this team didn't get to Omaha. It is without a doubt, if not the best, one of the top 5 best teams in the country, no question.
Last one I got before you, Joe. How many internal fist pumps have you done of not having to cover the Blazers for the last 3 years?
I could not have picked a better time.
You've really timed it perfectly, man.
Take a break, yeah. I mean, you never say never. I would never be opposed for going back and doing some NBA coverage and hopping back in that fray. It was a lot of fun for a lot of years. Teams have their downs. Let's not forget the year before I started covering them, they went, I want to say 21-8 or 60 or whatever, 61 that year, that Nate year. So, there were some lean years then, and they really turned things around. And so they're a good move or two away from doing that, I guess. But yeah, I have not missed it. It does not seem to be a super fun environment. I know still plugged in with Blazers fans and stuff. They're not happily, rightfully so. How are you guys handling it? What's your level of?
I haven't watched a game in 2 months, Joe.
Yeah.
I mean, they're just not worth the time.
Yeah, that's the thing, and it's one thing that I've talked about with people about other sports is like Oregon State men's basketball, for example. It's not when people are mad. That's great. When people are happy, that's better. When people don't care, when people are apathetic, that's a problem because you want people to care one way or the other. And when you're so bad and people are so hopeless that they just don't care, that's a problem. So, that's the next kind of worry for things on that front.
Yeah, that's a nice little Walton or Odin there from Joe Freeman on the Blazer season.
Yeah, well,
there you go.
I love it, man. That was nice perfect. Pull. Joe Freeman, at Blazer Freeman on Twitter. He's covering Oregon State baseball. He is a beacon of hope. Continue to be one, friend of the program. Let's catch up again soon. Thanks as always for the time, man.
Anytime, guys. It was good talking to you. Y'all take care.
Yeah, you too. Joe Freeman. Really good stuff from him.
He's great on the beat, man. I know they kind of asked him, but he's a professional. He wraps himself up into it. He's got a ton of great stories at O-Live. And I thought, Beaver fans deserve one.
Need one.
It's been tough the last couple months.
Need a win. I hope that team sticks together, and I hope they make it to Omaha this year.